I see in your comments two questions. One is, how do we deploy our resources when it comes to people, like you said, might be sitting behind a desk making $100,000 a year or whatever. And then how do we, well, I guess even the second part of the question has to do with, piggybacks on some of the other comments about any cuts to the police department impact it might have. Well, two things. Number one, I'm very proud of the fact that, again, something that didn't make the newspapers in any kind of significant manner. Most people probably don't know it even happened. But some of the changes that we've been able to get done in the police department, ultimately got deals agreed to, only happened, and those deals are going to help us better deploy our resources, only happened because we were in very, very tough negotiations, hard-nosed negotiations. I'll give you a couple specific examples that we were able to do. We were one of the only police departments that I've ever heard of that didn't have an afternoon detective shift. What did that mean? Did it mean that there was no crime in the afternoon or the evenings? Well, we all know that's absurd, right? So what would happen if you had a murder, you had a violent crime, you had a major thing where the detective bureau had to come out in the afternoon? 2 letters, OT, right? It was all overtime. All overtime. When we fought that terrible and major discipline issue a few years back, we had guys coming in saying they're booking overtime, coming in real early or staying late, and what were they doing? Sitting behind a desk, getting paid a lot of money, searching porn. And remember, there was only one part of the organization that even had the ability to go out on the internet and look at those sites. The DB, the Detective Bureau. Why? Because they're supposed to be investigating the worst of the worst. You know, sexual predators. And they can do a great job on it. But you lose all your credibility if you're violating the taxpayers' rights when you do it, and when you're doing things that are totally unseemly for the office and the organization. So we attacked those types of things. We've changed and we fought for deployment. We now have an afternoon shift. We also took all the people, well, that's just the beginning. We took the people that were doing desk work, taking desk reports, and civilianized those positions. Why? Because why would we have somebody making over $100,000 a year sitting behind a desk when we could take it as a civilian? And there's more. You know, one of the things on the table right now is how we do prisoner pickup. So you arrest someone out in the community. How do you get them from the part of the community they need, where they got arrested, to back to the jail? Right now we're running at times 2 squad rolls. Sometimes they call them a paddy wagon, these vans. There's 2 officers typically in that position. To run that entire operation over the course of the year, we're pushing, I think it's around 14 employees. Our move now is to partner with the county, redeploy those officers, and make sure those 14 positions are where? They're on the street. So here's the bottom line with it. Our net effective force today, in terms of putting our resources, getting them out from behind a desk into the field, is better than it's ever been. So that's how we've been able to absorb in a very, I don't want to lay off cops. I don't want to shut down fire stations. But I also am not going to sit here and say, let's just raise taxes. Because that's exactly what a lot of people would have us do. And it's not easy, but we're forcing the issue. If we have to talk about laying off policemen or firemen, the community rightly so says, what's going on? This doesn't make sense. And what it should do is drive the real agenda, which is right now, as we sit here today, if the fire union would agree to go 4 to 3, we wouldn't be shutting down any fire stations. If the employee base would take a 5% cut across the board, we wouldn't be laying off. We probably would, if those 2 things happen, we wouldn't be laying off anybody. But right now, they've been unwilling to do it.
I think
educational. My name's Bob Nelson. I've been a homeowner for the last 18 years in Rockford. Paid off my house, fixed it up. My wife filled our entire property with organic gardens and a flower collection. I have embarrassing problems troubling to talk about, but the city really let me down over the last few years. I had neighbors that moved in next to me. It was supposed to be a car lot, and immediately they set up an illegal car chopping, open dumping, and open spray painting operation where they're chopping 5 cars a day. I complained to the EPA. I complained to zoning agents. I asked several people that were my customers that were inside the city just to help me out. I asked police officers, what's going on here? Why do we have these fluids being poured out? I set up cameras a year ago. When I called the agents to come again, when it came to us visibly entering our organic gardens and de-vegetating our entire backyard. I just wanted to see if you would get with me sometime and I could show you what happened when those inspectors went on that property, stood in those puddles of oil, looked at the barrels of gas, stood next to piles of tires, sawzalls, and reported back that they saw nothing. But luckily I had many videos going, and this weekend I'm approaching $20,000 of soil tests on my property. Every time we dig, it comes up with more hazardous materials. Turns out they were dumping their paint guns too. Can I show you some videos sometime?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I'm a little embarrassed to tell the public what happened to us on our property.
You don't have to tell me what street you live on publicly, but I'd like to talk to you about it. There's nothing that infuriates me more is when I see that kind of stuff happening. Now, remember when we had the question that talked about, these property rights. This is a balancing test. Right. We got to set whatever rules we're going to set as our community, and then we enforce them fairly. But when somebody's doing the type of thing, obviously they're impinging on your property rights.
That's right.
And when I hear about that stuff happening, I live in a neighborhood that's had its share of challenges. Some people think I'm crazy. I happen to love my neighborhood. I didn't go in there to get killed. I got a great home at a great value and fixed it up. It was it was cheap when I bought it. Put a ton of money into it to improve it. I haven't paid it off yet, but I got my family and we're trying to work towards that. And I know what we do and how many times I've called 911 when we had, drug deals happening in front of our house. Or we had last summer, a guy who was bombed out at the local party house, passed out in my yard. Our 10-year-old at the time sees this. Mommy, why is this guy here? We find out he's a convicted sex offender from down the street. So believe me, we've had issues. And so that's why when I say nothing bothers me more than the story you're telling me, it's the absolute honest to God's truth. I know if I've got fears and concerns about responsiveness, remember, I'm probably not on the Christmas card list of a lot of the folks in the unions, right? But I'll tell you this, when I have had to call 911, and I've had to do it on a few different occasions because of threats that I've received or other problems that we've had, I have every confidence that our folks are going to be professional, because I also know we've got a leadership team that's going to demand it. And so I can give you this guarantee. I'm the head of that leadership team. We've got a chief of police. We've got folks that will work with me to make sure we address that issue. I will personally get involved, and I'll give you my business cards to make sure you can get a hold of me. The problem in our country, in our community specifically, we were mass producing a lot of folks who may have been good with their hands, they became machinists. They may have been good with reading books, like I was. I became a lawyer. But at the end of the day, as I look back, I was really supposed to become a lawyer to work for somebody else. A system that was designed to create entrepreneurs would be trying to merge these two skill sets, right? The business side with the getting your hands dirty side. What can Rockford do better than any part of the country? We still know how to make stuff. But instead of waiting for someone to place an order with us, we have to have the entrepreneurs building the finished product. And then we have to be able to network. There's been a lot of groundwork laid for this already, with a lot of supply chain management that's happening here. A lot of people say, hey, I can build my product with all the local suppliers. I don't need to go someplace else. We have to get our kids thinking about, I want to build a skateboard. How do I do that? I want to start making money today selling products. I want to get in computers and do software and gaming. Why can't we do that here? I would submit to you we can, but we have to make the decision to do it, and that's creating a whole bunch of new competitors. That's why, one final story. I know I'm going to get the hook. Let me tell you this. I'm the chairman of the Workforce Investment Board. This is one of the most absurd things that our federal government, if you want to get on that soapbox, one of the most absurd things that I had to do was look at potential. This is a guy in town who wanted to create small business incubation opportunities for young kids in high school. Wanted to give them a micro business loan to go into business. The best way to learn about business is run a business. It could be a small business, cut lawns, do all kinds of stuff that you can do, paint houses. Well, I'm on the Workforce Investment Board. We get millions of dollars of federal money that goes into workforce training. We do it with, they have a fancy word for when you get laid off. They call it a dislocated worker. It sounds more polite, I guess. So if you're a dislocated worker, we have a chance to provide retraining dollars. If you're a kid in school We also have opportunities to provide services and support there. Well, these kids were in school, guy comes up, great idea, we want to give you a micro business loan to give these kids entrepreneurial opportunities. The cops showed up, and I use it figuratively, but the regulatory cops who try to keep me from going to jail, which I always thank them, because I don't want to go to jail, right? But when we have federalized all these crimes, so when I sign my name on a document, if it's not doing what we're supposed to be doing, I could be committing a felony, and I could go to jail. Oh, and I sign document after document after document, so it's always going through my head, don't go to jail, don't go to jail, don't go to jail. And my wife likes me thinking that way too. But what at the end of the day, here's what the absurd regulation, and I wish I had with me tonight because it is absolutely the crux. This is on a micro level, the problem that I think we're on the same page with tonight. It's a federal regulation. I guarantee you, I bet we'd be challenged to find one member of Congress who knows this is out there. But there's a federal regulation that prohibits this workforce investment money, and it's honest to God, in black and white, says this money cannot be used for job creation or economic development.
Oh.
So when I read that, and the cops, who try to keep me out of jail, say that's why we can't give this money to this micro business guy because he could be creating jobs. So wait a minute, let me get this straight. We have workforce training in which we can give money to Walmart to train its employees to stock shelves with Chinese-made merchandise. But if you want to give money to a kid to start making T-shirts or sewing sweaters, and selling them on the internet, it's illegal.
Oh.
We got a problem in our country. We got a major problem. That's why, I'm very pleased to be working with guys like Congressman Manzullo who've been willing to take on that bureaucracy. But I guarantee you, most of the members of Congress, they don't even know that's out there. It was written by a regulatory person. And I tend, when you talk about Constitution, I took administrative law, and I tend to think we have given way too much authority to the regulatory people. The lobbying that a lot of times happens, it doesn't even happen with congressmen. It happens to the professional bureaucrat who will be there in one administration after the other administration. They're the ones who are getting flattered, wined and dined. They're the ones writing these rules that impact us locally, and that's wasting, billions of dollars in taxpayer dollars. Stimulus money, a lot of this was stimulus money that we've wasted because I gave this story to Senator Durbin when he was in town not too long ago, and it's something that we have to fix.